Greetings again, adventurers, and welcome back to Let's Play ChäoS. In the last episode, Takumi Nichijou had two delusions, one of which was good, one of which was bad, depending on how you look at it. But needless to say, in reality, he is still sitting here at Suume Private Academy with Daisuke Misumi sitting right here in front of him. In the good delusion, Takumi encountered a mysterious girl who he somehow mistakenly believed was some sort of Guro zombie on account of the fact that her hand was originally green and not entirely unlike the unfortunate test subjects of CERN's time travel experiments in Steins Gate. But said girl actually seemed to know who Takumi was within his own delusion, so there could be a further mystery in there. In the bad delusion, Takumi found the tragic corpse of a deceased cat, but then turned around and found what could possibly have been the same cat, alive and well, looking back at him. Both of these delusions appeared to take place in an alleyway somewhere around Shibuya, possibly near where his base is. But we've already sat through two of Takumi's delusions, so now it's time to face reality. Of course, Daisuke was berating Takumi for being a that is really hard to say, hikikomori, which is basically a complete absolute shut-in. Offended by how Misumi-kun had put it, I started to protest. But when I began to question what I would do if my saying that made him... Let me enunciate that properly. But when I began to question what I would do if my saying that made him dislike me and bully me, and in the end I only swallowed my words. Alas. I bit my lip and turned my face away from Misumi-kun. My line of sight wandered aimlessly, and I gazed vaguely at the words written on the blackboard. At first, I had no interest on what it said. All I recognized was the fact that words had been drawn there. Of course, we can't really see them right now because Daisuke's in the way. But as I gazed at it, an odd discomfort rose up inside me. Suddenly getting a chill down my spine yet again. We're in reality, right? This is neither a good nor bad delusion. This is the real world. I'd already sprung up from my chair.
ちょっとどいて。おい、どうしたんだよ。
Pushing Mizumi-kun out of the way, I went up to the blackboard. Seeing the letters written there, I fell into the illusion that, for an instant, my heart seized up as though someone had squeezed it. That's not an illusion nor a delusion, Takumi. Whose eyes are those eyes? Those were the words I often murmured to my heart, often murmured in my heart when I sensed God's gaze. And even more ominously to the point, this is the exact phrase that Shogun signed off with on the previous day, after sending his cryptic image links to Takumi's server. I'd never let them out of my mouth. I had no one to speak them to, And yet Shogun knew that phrase. He used those very words, albeit they were in Japanese kanji rather than English, but the phrase is the same. I'd never even said it to Mizumi-kun. There was no way anyone in this class knew that I often used those words, which means that whoever Shogun is, he is not in Tsuume Academy, at least to our knowledge. Why? Who? To what end? Like I said moments ago, we're in reality, not a delusion. And yet somebody knows that phrase buried deep in Takumi's unconscious mind and soul. I whipped around and looked around the classroom. The only one paying attention to my behavior was Mizumi-kun. All the others were eagerly jabbering to their friends, or reading manga that they were forbidden to bring here in the first place, all plastered flat against their desks and sleeping. So for some reason they were all apparently ignoring the phrase. Maybe its meaning is too obscure for them to discern, which would probably be a good thing in Takumi's case. But the fact remains is that somebody wrote that. Who was it? Who wrote this? When did they write it? Had it already been written there back when I first entered the classroom? I couldn't remember. Normally I'm not all that conscious about what's written on the blackboard. Well, today you are.
なあ、どうしたんだ?
Walking up to me, Mizumi-kun grabbed me by the shoulder and
聞いて
shook
る?
me.
おーい、タク。
Of course, Daisuke once again ignoring Takumi's paranoia. Whoever had written it, surely it had nothing to do with me. Obviously, it was just a coincidence. Commonly used words like these. That is not a common phrase. The words may be common, but the phrase is not. It was just a stupid, pointless piece of graffiti. That had to be the case. If only. I tried to make myself think that way, but no matter what, I was still uneasy. So someone knows. Something, at least. Ultimately, things would end without my knowing who had written it. If I could, I'd want to go around the class and ask anyone. But I lacked the courage. Unfortunate. Homeroom started while I was preoccupied with that, and the graffiti got swiftly erased when our teacher said, "Okay, who did it? Who drew on the board?" Looks like we never will know exactly who wrote the phrase on the board at the moment. Somehow I had an eerie feeling, but I aimed to comfort myself as usual. If I let it scare me, that would be the same as acknowledging the fact that it was some kind of message related to me. It's too far to be a coincidence, Takumi. Which was impossible. It was a mere coincidence. Yeah. I'm reiterating my previous sentence. Telling myself that over and over again, I followed my plans and headed for a net cafe on the way back from school. As I hated going out, At Cafe was my sole amusement spot, which brings us to the present. It was located at the edge of Shibuya's shopping district, and as such, many of its customers were delinquent 3D girls or blurry salesmen. But all the problems were meant for individual... No, I read that wrong. But all the rooms were meant for individual use, so it wasn't a problem. Got my words mixed up there. By the way, the room I was currently in, room 37, had been reserved for my use, and was placed in the furthest back part of the store. It was inconvenient for going to get juice refills, but because not many people went into the nearby seats, it was relatively quiet. perfect for a otaku such as Takumi Nishijo. I went out of my way to come here once or twice a week on the way back from school, in order to log into Ensu with a different ID. Ah, so he's using a separate character from the mighty Neidhart. In other words, it was like taking a break. Neidhart was a little too well known. I didn't mind that, but having to be a paragon of heroic behavior day after day was pretty stressful. The one I use over here is a female character called Lieselette. However, Lieselette's battle history was pretty terrible. I only used her to make those around her look better in comparison. Today, too, I released my stress by playing for about 3 laid-back hours, afterward I chatted with my guild friends for a while, getting worked up over stupid and/or aero topics. Of course you are. It was close to 9 p.m. when I left the store, and Shibuya is quite colorful at night. Around this time of night, there tends to be an especially large number of juvie types in the shopping district. I got the urge to vomit when I saw them sitting here and there along the road like it belonged to them, or grinning crudely while eating fast food hamburgers. If I made the mistake of meeting their eyes, those imbeciles would soon react by attacking me. What savages. Yeah, Takumi still has an aversion to the real world. People like that aren't human beings, they're just males and females. They don't have a single fragment of social intelligence. Guys like that should go die. Seriously, they should go off and die. I swear, Takumi Nishijo, if you utter the phrase "normies must explode," I'm going to lose my mind. That's what I kept thinking, but when you got down to it, it was pointless to respond to them. So I planned to hastily remove myself from the shopping district. It took me a little out of the way, but after leaving at cafe, it was my routine to stop by either the nearby Mandarake and Animate stores, or Animate stores. I'm pretty sure those two stores were also available in Akihabara as well. Deciding I would go to Animate today, I headed for the subway's southern entrance. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation there, and for that I apologize. When you come this way, the number of delinquents sharply decreases. The central district was seriously chaotic. Just walking there almost made it hard to breathe. If it were possible, I wouldn't want to take a single step closer. I wanted it all to get destroyed, leaving behind only At Cafe and Mandarake. Now then, I'll trawl through the comics and doujinshi today as well. Ah, come to think of it, pre-orders for the 5th Blood Tune DVD should be opening soon, shouldn't they? Well, Takumi definitely has his priorities straight. Before I knew it, I was standing on the narrow street in the Maruyama area that I always use to get back to my base from Animate. I blinked multiple times. I took a peek inside my bag. Several textbooks and a gambling-enabled cell phone were the only things inside. I hadn't bought anything today at Animate. Or I hadn't bought anything at Animate today, despite the fact that I always buy something there, without fail. That's a first. I let out a sigh and began walking again. From here it would take at least 15 minutes to get back to my base. That's pretty expedient there, especially for an otaku like yourself. Merely moving a little ways away from the station was enough to make the dazzling lights and neon vanish, and the presence of other people grow scarce. Yes, I know it says presences there. It is already plural-ish. If I had to put it one way or the other, it wasn't very active. At most, I saw middle-aged couples on their way to the hotel district, and once in a while, a salaryman returning to his nearby home. And of course, Takumi Nishijo lives inside a shipping container. What fun. I had a hard time thinking thinking that it was the same Shibuya as the shopping district. A lot of alliteration there, which overflowed with those delinquents. It seemed that clouds had come out now that it was night, and the moon was hidden from view and making the road darker than usual. Well, hopefully those delinquents don't have nail bats with barbed wire tied around. That would be a terrible thing.
まただ。
Familiar scenery, a filthy street. Yet I was attacked by the peculiar sensation that I'd gotten lost in a different world altogether. Although the scenery itself hadn't changed, it was as if I was setting foot in this place for the very first time. Also, the rotten stench of raw garbage was floating in the air. The seeping moisture that clung to my skin was enough to make me mistakenly think that it was raining. The air seemed to paste itself to me.
いや、ちょっと待った。
When was again referring to? When had I previously experienced Yame-vu? Damn it, reality and my delusions were getting mixed together. Now my thoughts were starting to resemble the stereotypical analysis offered by some sketchy expert on a TV variety show, weren't they? Anyway, I was certainly experiencing Yame-vu at this point. And that wasn't all. That prickling along my muscles of my neck. The sensation that someone was looking down at me from the heavens. The gaze is back. It wasn't a hallucination. No matter how much I sped up my pace, the gaze followed me wherever I went. Right now, someone was definitely watching me. The presence of the gaze was just that strong. I wanted to turn around, but in the end, I didn't. This was a game I challenged myself with every once in a while. When I heard some small noise, even if I had the feeling that someone was watching me, I played the "it'll take more than that to make me turn around" game. If I turned around, I would lose. The visions that usually appeared in my head when I sensed the gaze were ghosts with horrifying faces, monsters, things like that. Well, whatever. Whatever the case, in the past 17 years, there wasn't a single instance of me turning around and actually finding something there. With that limited guarantee of safety attached to it, I came to enjoy this single-player mental game. I would listen very carefully to the wind, raise one eyebrow there, and make a dubious face, trying to say manga-esque lines. Because the reason I didn't turn around wasn't because I was scared or anything. It's a very tsundere phrase there.
貴様、見ているな。その目誰の目？なんちゃって。
I'd meant to make an urgent show of my own nonchalance, but before I realized it, my feet had stopped. Two of those words were very manga-esque and very chunibu, and one of those phrases was definitely not like the others. Sensing a faint alteration in the strained air, I cowered. At some point, my face had become soaked with sweat, and my knees seemed about to start knocking. Unable to bear it any longer, I turned around. I lost the game, but there was no one behind me after all. There weren't any even cars passing. What was the sense of displacement? The The ringing in my ears stopped. Yeah, if you were wondering what that noise was for a long while, whether or not it was a feedback in the electrical systems and the streets of Shibuya, spoilers, it wasn't. But then, where did it come from, and where did it go? Mysteries abound. Also, I didn't want to say anything while narrating that entire um, uh, narrating Takumi's thoughts there, and I also didn't want to bring up the fact that Takumi has found himself precisely at the very alleyway that he saw in his delusions, which is very beyond coincidental at this point. Now, it could be that he's been here before in the past and just completely forgotten it and shut it out of his memory. But yeah, that feeling of yame vu is very real indeed. I noticed the sound only when it stopped. Up until then, I'd been hearing a sound like my ears ringing. Up until then, I'd completely failed to recognize the fact that they were ringing. And now I heard nothing. A silence so sudden it seemed like a lie, especially smack dab in the middle of a city. I had a feeling that I should be able to hear any sounds out there with incredible clarity, especially in this silence. You could probably now cut it with a knife. I shut my eyes tight and focused on my hearing. But of course I heard nothing. Alas, more silence. Strange. This was really strange. Normally I would hear things like trains running in the distance and car horns beeping. Well, the good news is that there is no dead cat lying in the middle of the alleyway this time. Don't worry, adventurers, that was indeed merely a delusion. Why? Had something gone wrong with my ears? I wanted to shout loud. I felt like I'd go crazy if I didn't. Probably a bad idea, especially at this time of night. But I couldn't do it. Probably for the best. It was too quiet, and the thought that breaking the silence might bring about something terrible made me hesitate. And there is a very metallic sound coming from somewhere in the alleyway. But unbeknownst to Takumi, unless he realizes it now, we've heard that metallic sound before. From the second delusion. Now there is no black cat there, or dead cat, or whatever cat, of any sort of breed or color. But the fact that that sound is clattering throughout the streets does not bode well. A single sound unexpectedly entered my soundless world. When I glanced over, at the end of the dirty road lay full of numerous shining somethings. They were strewn about to cover the asphalt. They looked like weird sort of daggers, or maybe something else.
十字架
They could be crosses. They could be metal stakes. The instant I recognized them as such, my feet, which before had refused to so much as twitch, spontaneously stepped forward. Upon picking up one of the scattered crosses, I found that it was made of metal, and its lengthy point sharpened into something like a needle. I'm getting a very dread vibe about that metallic sound. A stake or a nail? Because it was shaped strangely, I had mistaken it for a cross. I felt buoyant as I gripped the stake in my hand. I believe it's supposed to say it felt buoyant as I gripped the stake in my hand. I could hear it. the softly resonating sound of something or other, a chilly sound, one that made the muscles on my back freeze up. It came to me at intervals. It's a fairly consistent sound in rhythm and tempo. My feet wouldn't stop. I continued walking as though my consciousness was being sucked in that sound's direction. Was I being driven by morbid curiosity? Or was it because I wanted someone to save me? Or because I wanted to be lifted out of that soundless world? This was turning out almost like a German folk tale. I didn't know you read those, Takumi. The more you know. How did it go? That's right, the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Over 100 children were lured away by the sound of the pipe. I remember that folk tale, vaguely. The sound didn't stop. The unpleasant sound of something being hammered grew closer and closer as I continued forward. The sound was coming from the depths of a narrow alleyway to my left. If I turned the corner, I would discover its source. Do we want to? Do we have any other choice? Why didn't I think of drawing back? The idea didn't even occur to me. It was as though I was being made to move by something outside me. So I turned the corner, and what leapt into my eyes was, floating up out of the darkness, a brilliant red. That's, morbidly terrifying. My first reaction was to think, I've seen this object dart somewhere before. That, and it doesn't look real. We have seen this before. In fact, that was the image that Shogun had sent to Takumi the other day. And there appears to be a girl wearing a uniform, eerily similar to the one from Takumi's first delusion. Some of the screws holding together my heart might have gotten blasted away. My senses might have gone numb. If I were my usual self, terror would have made me let out a pathetic scream, collapse, and urinate on the spot. An object dart like a hedgehog or a bunch of flower-arranging needles. A myriad of stakes kept it stuck to the wall. As I gazed mindlessly at it, I realized that a huge quantity of red blood was flowing from the mountain of stakes. Yeah, I hate to break it to you, Takumi, but that is not an object dart whatsoever. The brilliant red I had initially seen was a pool of blood, lit by the weakened light of the street lamps that had just barely reached it. That red lit off a slick luster. Moreover, a bunch of shiny flesh-like lumps that I couldn't identify were lying around. I started to suck in my breath, but at some point my throat had dried up and not a single drop of saliva ran down it. I'd realized. It's about time that the thing penned up by the stakes was a human corpse. So essentially, we have stumbled upon what could be the third iteration of the New Gen madness. It was done too immorally, too mercilessly, too thoroughly. And the one who had done so, the one who had driven this many stakes into the concrete, was a single girl. And now, it's just dawned on me, ladies and gentlemen, that Daisuke's frivolity might actually have some basis to it after all. If I were to say how I knew that, because a girl gripping a bunch of stakes with scarlet painted hands was at this very moment standing still in front of the object dart. Since her back was facing me, I couldn't tell what kind of expression she was making. The uniform she wore was from Survey. The rotten, garbage-like smell I'd sensed earlier reached my nose and more vividly, making nausea come at me at intervals. It seems that both Takumi's good and bad delusions previously have converged into one terrifying reality. Unable to tolerate it, I covered my mouth and struggled to keep my stomach acid from bursting out. And it's also just dawned on me that that sound might not actually be the girls morbidly stabbing the corpse over and over again with one of the stakes, but the blood that's dripping down from said stakes. At that point, I'd finally remembered the origin of my deja vu. I thought you'd call it yame vu, or maybe it is French, I don't know. The feeling that I'd seen this somewhere before. Yes, we have. Twice.
あの
Three
時の
times, in fact.
将軍のリンク写真
Yes, indeed, the one that you inadvertently clicked on. I raised my voice without meaning to, without realizing that such an action was fatal. And the sound has stopped, so maybe it was her after all. Oh dear, that's not good. At the sound of my voice, her blood-dyed shoulders shivered, and she slowly turned to face me. Her gaze pierced through me, such dark eyes. She had killed somebody. And she recognizes us. She looked at me, widening her eyes as though shocked, and then shifted to a tearful smile and squeezed her voice out.
よかった。
She murmured. I'm glad someone's glad, 'cause we're not. What was there to be glad about? My thoughts exactly. More importantly, in a situation like this, why would she see me and smile? Her meaning was unclear. So unclear that something cold ran down my spine, and I hastily averted my eyes. I reflexively thought, I don't want to get caught up in anything weird. I couldn't talk to real girls while looking them in the eye, and even setting that aside, she was unmistakably a murderer. The police would come soon, and I was hungry. Seriously, Takumi, you're actually thinking about your stomach at a time like this. Right. That's why I should go home. I should leave right this second. If not, I'll... Actually, that's actually a good thing. Think about your stomach all you want, Takumi. Just disregard what I just said. Otherwise, I'll go insane. Who's to say we haven't gone insane already? Who's to say we weren't already insane when this whole thing started? And of course, as in the delusion, she knows who Takumi Nishijo is. She abruptly used my name. Even though it was the first time we'd met, and I hadn't given her my name. But this time around there is a bit of a difference. Not only did she utter Takumi's name, she used the nickname that Daisuke Misumi used at Tsuume Academy.
あなたに会いたかった。
As she watched me, her lips twisted into a horrifically fearless smile, like those of a demon, or a yandere. I screamed. While screaming, I ran blindly. I went on yelling even as it became hard to breathe. But whatever happened, I desperately kept running. I turned just once to look behind me, but she hadn't come chasing after me. That's probably the only silver lining to this whole mess. Wait, what just happened? That couldn't have been another delusion. Or was it? Huh. Could we have possibly experienced a delusion without even meaning to? Is that what happened? Well, in any event, I'm going to end this episode of Let's Play Chaos Head here. And when we return, adventurers, we're going to have to try and sort out this little psychological labyrinth here. Because things have definitely gotten even worse than beforehand. And it's not going to go away anytime soon. So as always, dear adventurers, until next we meet.